the invoices and manage the contract for the various projects. So you can see, as Supervisor Conant brought up, we essentially just have a little over $400,000 as the positive difference. This is give you an idea of kind of a standard charge for pavement maintenance, which is a big deal. So the county has in total just under 760 miles of maintained mileage. There's about 220 miles of that is gravel, dirt. The remaining is paved. This is a typical graph for how to best spend money on pavement maintenance that's pretty much put out by a number of agencies. So when a road is obviously zero fresh, it essentially is developed to have a good, ideally 20-year life. And what this shows is based on average use. This is the type of degradation that you'll see that essentially it can lose about 75% of its life in 10 years. And so typically before that time, you try to do a type of restorative pavement management. So the county, we have at our discretion a number of different maintenance treatments. We primarily rely upon chip seals, microsurfacing, and overlays. And then you can vary the thickness of the overlays, and we'll go into some of that in a bit. But this chart also gives you a relative cost of, like, the top number of doing some of the maintenance, maybe $2 on a relative basis, whereas something once you get farther down and have to do some restoration to the roadway, it could be $4. And then as you get farther on down and have to totally rehabilitate, where that's where you would grind out the road and put down all new asphalt, can be $12 to $16. Typically in the county, we don't fully grind out and rehabilitate roadways. We normally do localized digouts, which are the wheel ruts in various roadways, and then those get filled with asphalt, and then we pave over the roadway. So, but unfortunately, a lot of Sutter County's roadways were not properly constructed with 6 to 8 inches of base and then 2 to 4 inches of asphalt. Some of them, have come to be as of old farm roads, or they were, previously constructed with river rock, and they had oil blended in with them. And then in the, over the years, the road segments have just been, received some asphalt pavement. Some have held up quite well. Some do not hold up very well. And so we continue to go back. And then there's also the combination of the vehicle traffic that you see. One of the handouts that I provided to you is the pavement maintenance strategy, which was developed back in about 2013 by our department. It's never been formally adopted by your board, but it's been an internal document used by our department to try to come up with some parameters as to how we essentially utilize this curve and apply it to our county. And so maybe I can, you'll see that on the first page of it essentially includes a very similar kind of curve. But if you flip to, if you essentially flip to page 6, we essentially begin to try to identify, based on the type of road that it is, whether it's an arterial collector, a local road, or a residential or an urban local road, the type of treatment that we would use based on what's called the road's PCI, or pavement condition index. So the pavement condition index is something that it can be visually inspected by staff or a consultant, and then essentially a score from 0 to 100 is assigned, or it can be done kind of automatically through, there are grading vans that include a number of sensors, GPS equipment, and they can go survey road systems and then come out with scores on they usually use a half-mile basis for every road segment. So we take those scores. We have a database that the staff maintains for all of the county's roadways that are paved. We look at the score currently. We look at the traffic volumes. So the county has roads that have traffic volumes that are probably anywhere from 0 to 10,000 cars a day. Some of the busier roadways, are Bogue Road, Riego Road, George Washington, Pleasant Grove. Those are historically been some of the busier roadways in the county. And would see, so they are where typically the county has focused a lot of their priority in maintenance. In the past, Pleasant Grove Road, for example, George Washington when the county received federal funds for overlays back about 15 years ago, the county would go and do 2 to 3 inches of pavement over like 3 or 4 miles. Obviously, the process was a lot cheaper, but those corridors were seeing a lot of truck traffic. So the federal money isn't really allocated directly for pavement maintenance any longer. And so the counties had to become, our agency as well as every other one has become more selective. So we look at the type of road traffic that we have, and we look at the types of vehicles. There are some roadways that obviously we've identified that are the preferred vehicles on there are agricultural traffic. And so they have the haul traffic that may be occurring during harvest seasons in a variety of all of our basins. And the county has tried to help identify what might be some of the primary roads, like, for example, Reclamation Road in the Robbins Basin that essentially leads from 113 to Highway 20. It goes on to a few other county roads. But the county has put, your board has approved a variety of projects that we've done treatments on, for example, 9 miles of Reclamation Road in order to extend the longevity of that roadway. And we are continually trying to identify them. I'm going to show you here in the future the roads that we're recommending for this next year. And you'll see, I'll say the relative costs and that type of thing. But what we try to do is look at traffic volumes, and probably, fortunately or unfortunately, probably about 70% of the county's roadways see less than 1,000 cars a day. And so sometimes the heaviest car on the heaviest vehicle on those roadways actually is the garbage truck from Recology. And so consequently, depending on how well that road was constructed, and typically it is, the hot summers that we have here bleach the oil out of the roadway, and that's what contributes to the cracking that we see and eventually the deterioration. There are some roadways that have been subject to, direct, we'll say, farm hauling traffic, for example. Township Road from Bogue Road to Highway 20 previously has seen a lot of ag traffic. And so it has rutting significantly that needs to be addressed. And so we would do dig outs on that type of roadway. But the ADT, the type of volume, it's less than 1,000 cars a day typically. And so as we get to it and you see that the amount of money that we have, it gets spread very, very thin over the county when we have to identify the various roadways where we're trying to seek treatment in order to restore. And then I'll say, unfortunately, the county, probably due to revenue and funding and opportunities, got behind on the amount of roads that need maintenance. And so the opportunity has come through the Sb1 Funds. So the Sb1 Funds, just to give you an overview, essentially is a 10-year state initiative through a tax measure on gas tax that's being given to every jurisdiction. Our county will receive a total of $39 million over 10 years. It started out a little bit slow the first year. We're averaging between about $3.2 and $3.8 million per year now, and we're putting those into road and bridge projects that we'll talk about. But you can see that we have a lot of roads to catch up on, and this Sb1 fund is going to be our opportunity to try to restore as many roads as possible. You'll see that we're going to be doing a project. So we have a road overlay project and a road seals project out to bid right now that your board approved and adopted the plans for. We then have in this plan, we'll show you the plans for next year to do even more than that, dollar-wise, on more county roadways. So unless there's any questions about our pavement strategy.
Is there any questions from the board? I have one question. You had mentioned Recology. I've asked this before. Do we get any money from Recology, anything from the dump trucks using our roads?
So I believe the current agreement includes about $60,000 per year from Recology.
And is that, how long has that been going on for? Has that just been $60,000 for? Is that voted on is that looked at every year?
To the chair?
Yes.
Yeah, since the last contract, which may have been in 2018 or 19, there's a community participation fee that they pay. I think that's the title of it, and it's about $60,000 a year.
All right. And then what about the repairs? What about the state? The levee repairs done by the state, and mainly actually in District 5 in Matt's district. they're annihilating the roads over there and the corners, really digging out the corners and so forth. It sounds like
Sacramento Avenue.
Yes, yeah.
So what we found is that the Army Corps of Engineers through the state, essentially DWR and some of their sub-agencies, are doing a number of levee repair projects, both in Sutter County and kind of traveling through Sutter County. And certainly we've made contact with them as we find out about their projects, and we've gotten with the contractors in the state in order to get some sense of reimbursement. So, for example, Sacramento Avenue down just north of the Feather River Bridge on Highway 99. So that project is currently out to bid for to restore the roadway from Highway 99 essentially to the levee. It was in, we'll say, a relatively poor state prior to the project. They did the project. It took staff about probably a year to negotiate and finalize an agreement that your board ultimately approved. And then consequently, we received the payment check from the state that's been deposited into the county. And so we have the project out to bid. So on a case-by-case basis, we do try to do that. When we have the opportunity to comment on a project's environmental documents, we typically stipulate in there that the contractor would have to enter it's called a haul road fee agreement, and that is to essentially look at what the impacts are to the roadway. They either have the option of paying on a per tonnage, or they can look to restore the road to pre-project conditions.
Through the chair, in 17, when the levee repairs were being done and they were bursting those levees with rock, they were hauling so many loads of rock that one truck actually sunk on West Catlett into the road, just went right into it. Because it was so saturated soil profile that it just destroyed the road.
Yes, I actually went and saw that truck, and then obviously we got the road repaired so that we could reopen it and stuff, but yes.
Through the chair. I just have a quick question. So what about the roads that are shared with the city and the county, like unincorporated, like where the Keyhole is, and like Walton, or you look at Sanborn, where the west side of the road is county and the east side of the Cat's Eyes are city? What's the story with those?
So historically, for some time, when the county did annexations to the city, the annexations would go to the center line of the roadway, and it then created this maintenance problem as to who's going to take care of which side. And typically what happened, unfortunately, is that the whole roadway was neglected, that neither side would do the maintenance. And part of it, unfortunately, may have been that the county thought that there would be further annexations and the whole road would go into the city, and then consequently, so the county didn't prioritize those repairs. It seems that obviously the city-county borders have somewhat stabilized on at least a couple sides, and so my department, as well as the Yuba City Public Works, have had conversations. We currently have a project out to bid. Our overlay project is to repave a good portion of Sanborn Road, which is half city, half county, essentially to go from a little bit north of Bogue Road to Lincoln, and actually go even a little bit of north of Lincoln Road to the city-county boundary where it takes the whole road. So the two agencies have realized the issue from a maintenance standpoint, so subsequent annexations have always gone and now take the whole road. But there are portions like that, I want to say, on Butte House, Township, and even up on Pease Road. So, but I feel like our department and the city have come together and are now trying to, work together to develop some projects that can benefit both agencies and obviously the road users. I will say one thing that typically does happen when a paving project occurs in a residential neighborhood is then unfortunately speeds can often increase, because what had been a poor quality roadway with maybe ruts and potholes, sometimes that can slow drivers down. Once the road is repaved, unfortunately we sometimes see an increase in speeding for some period.
So are you saying that the potholes are there by design?
Not by design, but they can have some unintended benefits.
Thank you.
But ideally, we'll improve all the roadways. So moving on to the next slide. So this is to give you an idea of the breakdown. So my department keeps track of, so every year that we put out the road plan, we keep kind of a historical running average as into the amount of work that is being done between all the districts. And then on the far right, I have included the latest mileage breakdown for the most current boundaries of the supervisorial districts. So you can see that they are relatively correlated. It will seem that, and I will say it doesn't include the 2022 work yet because we actually haven't performed that work, so in case there are any contract changes. But for the most part, the work history corresponds rather well with the mileage breakdown. Once again, this mileage breakdown is just under 760 miles, and that does include it includes all of the gravel and dirt roadways, the majority of which are in District 5. There are some in District 1, some in District 3, but the majority are in District 5.
Yeah.
So this would not reflect the new redistricting, like the new map?
So the mileage breakdown does reflect the redistricting.
Okay.
That is the current districting, and then the work history is up through the current contract that's out for bid.
Thank you.
Through the chair. Neil, when you're talking about overlays and seals, are those seals just oil seals or chip seals or?
So when we do a seals, we do what typically is a chip seal with the microsurfacing on top. So a chip seal is you go to the existing roadway, you put down oil, and then you put down 5/16 or 3/8 chips, and then you compact them into the roadway. It takes about, on a good hot summer day, it can take about 8 hours from the time they're put down until the road is drivable for traffic and it won't, kick up. Certainly our department has been challenged with some contracts that have, maybe gone into the late summer, early fall, and the temperatures don't come up as quickly, and then residents get inconvenienced. So we try to, that's why we have projects out for bid now, so as the temperatures begin to rise. The overlays, typically our standard overlay is a 2/10. So a little over, so about 2.5 inches of asphalt that would be placed over the existing roadway. You put oil down, depending on the status of the roadway. Sometimes there's been fabric that we would put down. It kind of helps keeps the cracks from coming through. The challenge with that can be that then if you ever do any kind of recycling, having that fabric mat in there messes up the whole process of rehabilitating and recycling the roadway.
Okay. Just on average, I mean, how much cheaper is that per mile than doing asphalt?
So a seal is about 90,000. So a cape seal with the microsurfacing. So the microsurfacing is you go back with oil and it's primarily a sand slurry that's all nice and black, and then that's what helps the striping show up. That combination is about 90,000 a mile. So essentially, it's about a quarter of the cost. So here are the roads that we were going to propose for the following fiscal year in fiscal year 22 and 23. The majority of the roadways for this year are recommended to be in District 5. So El Centro, sections of Garden Highway, you can see that we're trying to do just under 9 miles of overlays. We are including Fortna Road off of Township to the west end. That's in conjunction with the recently completed Fortna Road Bridge replacement project. And so we were looking to complete that. And then as far as the seals projects, we have a number of roadways, once again, down in District 5 and all pretty much in the southern part of the county, about 7.5 miles of that. So just for the overlays, we're calling out a single pass overlay, which is at 2/10. For the seals, we're calling out was actually a triple seal. So that actually is to go over it a number of times with chip seals and then finish with the microsurfacing. And that's to try to build up the roadway. And still with the seals, it is just still cheaper than an overlay, and it will build up a little bit of the section of the roadway, and then we finish it off with the microsurfacing. And part of it has to do with once again those ADT volumes. So the roadway is that while obviously every road user would like a fresh paved roadway, that's going to be the smoothest roadway. It's going to last the longest. The relative cost associated with all of that is somewhat prohibitive. So that's why we try to utilize the seals.
Through the chair. Sorry, one quick question for you, Neil. So the difference, a regular chip seal is you're laying the oil and all that, but then it's one more final layer of chip over it. But in the what do you call it, micro seal? Is that but with oil over the top of that final chip?
Yeah, so the microsurfacing has oil and sand, a slurry that kind of builds it up and kind of gives you a very nice smooth finish. Like, so for example, we wouldn't do a chip seal in like a residential neighborhood where there may be curb, gutter, sidewalk. Because if you're riding a bike or you're rolling on a skateboard and you fall down, you're going to scrape up your skin dramatically. So something that a microsurface treatment, most people probably couldn't tell the difference between a microsurfacing and an overlay. Once the finished product, they look identical. They're the same color. The striping shows up the same. So,
okay. Thank you.
Question for you.
Yes.
How, going back to your page 6 and how you assess which road needs to be done, I look at the roads up here, and I still am. How do we, out of all the roads, why these roads here? Is what I'm getting at. Like Fortner Road is. I mean, I see 609,000 for a single pass overlay for one length 1 mile. Then El Cerrito Boulevard is 1.5 miles for a single pass overlay, and it says 480,000.
Right. So some of it has to do with the preparation. So if we're doing the overlay, there may be what are called dig outs, or there could be road grinding essentially to tie it into the other segments of intersections that may come into the roadway, or tying it into driveways and various things. And so we make an estimate and an allocation for the type of prep work. Additionally, if the road has some road failures that require dig out, those are a localized cost within the roadway. And we try to, come up with a budgeting number so that the construction contract, this has some inflation numbers so that by the time, if your board were to approve it, by the time we put it out to bid, normally we try to put these projects out to bid in the early spring so that there's some of the first contracts that are actually put out and are let. We have found that we can get pretty good pricing from contractors that way. But I guess I will say the other part of this whole presentation is to actually talk that if you're aware of other roadways within your district that you feel that you want us to take a look at, then we would go and do that. This is based, yes, on a consideration of the traffic volumes, the complaints that our department receives, staff, both office staff and the road crew. They have a monthly meeting where they get together and talk about where they're having to do road work, where they're having to do potholing, and those type of things. Like I would say, for example, Seymour Road. Seymour Road has been there have been a lot of complaints about Seymour Road for a very, very long time, so we're trying to go and address it.
I guess I'm more or less looking at roads like in the town of Meridian, like Farmland Road and Mawson Road. But, I mean, you all have traveled those roads, and I'm assuming in your expertise, it just doesn't – these roads right here on the screen right now are more – if they don't get the TLC, it's going to cost even more, where the other roads are still not there yet. They don't need the touch-up. They could handle another few years before they get a single pass overlay.
Right, and so, for example, we have done some work on Farmland Road. The county road crews did work on Farmland Road, but it was only a segment of it. And that's the thing. And this, I will say, is only this year's road plan. So we do maintain a spreadsheet of subsequent years and subsequent roads that we're kind of looking for. It's, a continual effort that we kind of put roads on it and then evaluate them. And I know, for example, that, other segments of Farmland are on that road. If there are other, like I say, roads within your districts that you feel, your constituents are concerned about, we're happy to take a look at them and, and bring this back. That's why this is not the final road plan, and wanted to essentially have a study session and,
Yes, Supervisor.
Yes, that goes back to my question is how do we get on this road plan? Because for the last 15 months or so that I've been repeatedly, I guess, so I sound like a broken record about all the potholes and the complaints within my district. And so how do I get those roads on this plan?
So for example, the roads that you've mentioned to me, I've made my staff aware of it and they're on our list. I think one of the things that I can go back to is that when making the list, we try to some degree, prioritize it and rank it and spread it among the districts. So for example, there's I will say there's a road in District 4 being worked on that will be worked on this year and will be completed by June. And that'll go on the spreadsheet. And so we're continually trying to look at ways to spread the funding. And it's one of the talking points that I have here. But there are a number of roads, and I realize, District 4 has somewhat expanded with the redistricting and kind of changed. And so, there are roads. Part of it is that we try to look at the traffic volumes in a different district. There may be more roads that have higher volumes. And so it's an iterative effort of going back and forth. But certainly, I'm happy to meet with each and every one of you, and even when you contact me about various roads, obviously I make a list of that. I pass it on to my staff. We consult with our road crew as to where they're having to go out from. The road crew is very good about having interactions with the citizens of the county, and so they then pass those comments on to our office staff, and that's why I say it's just an ongoing conversation. That we're trying. Unfortunately, we are the county. The department is behind on pavement maintenance due to funding and a variety of issues. But we're now trying to play catch up and spend the money most efficiently. To kind of get some catch up and try to service the community. We're trying to focus a lot of work in residential areas because obviously that's where people live, and those are the roads that they drive on the most. And we're trying to see if we can get just good ways to get people to the state highway system. Right. The other challenge that we have is that the farming community, there are a number of roads that they would like to see improved for harvesting, when they have their trucks and stuff. And what typically happens, roughly the impact of one fully loaded semi-truck compared to a car. So one fully loaded semi-truck, I believe, is equivalent to about 13,000 cars, as far as the impact and the abuse that the roadway would take. Now, that's why we try to design the roadways so they're designed for that between the base and the asphalt. But just to give you a relative measure as to why we try to take a look at what type of roadways we have, and it's part of that concentrated traffic that we get from the agricultural community is something that we're trying to address. So, like, for example, if we can take care of Reclamation Road, because it's a core roadway in that basin, but then we need to have other roadways off of it that can help feed it. The challenge is that we really can't allocate, I don't think, funds to each one of those other roads. And so it's kind of like trying to find other kind of feeder roads, for example, to reclamation. And in each district, it's a similar story.
Through the chair. Sorry, let me. Hey, Steve, if we could have Chuck Smith work with Neil on some sort of cliff noted something that we could put on our Facebook pages or something, go before when we have our town hall meetings, so we could ask for input from the people of our district. So something Supervisor McKelly could put out there on his page, or people could write in saying, we'd like you to look at this road. And then in that, it's explained, Neil, how you just explained it, that, we look at it per case. We only have so much money to work with, and this is how much money we get from the state. Just make it really simple, something that we could all take and put out there. And like I said, we could use it as our town halls as well, so people know exactly where the money's going to, and they know how tough it is. Like I said, Supervisor Baines over here for the last 15 months trying to fill up a pothole.
So I just make a recommendation that it be something that we could post on the county's website or something.
Both.
To,
yes.
Through the sheriff. So,
Yes.
so Neil, you might want to also talk about how you evaluate the roads per mile, the staff. I don't think you really addressed that thoroughly.
So in order to develop the original score is that we hired a contractor. They essentially developed these pavement condition index scores. We developed that in a database, and then staff goes out on a regular basis and tries to look at the deterioration of the roadway relative to that. And typically what happens is there's localized areas where we have the failures and the traffic. There are sometimes it's as a result of levee projects or some type of specific haul road action that is causing it. The county has a couple of haul road fees that we've collected. Like, for example, we're rebuilding Stripland Road between El Centro and Pacific Avenue because of fees that were collected from the Reclamation District borrow pit. And so, once again, every year, and so I'll say, so myself as a road commissioner, I drive on a variety of county roadways. If I go to a meeting, what I always would tell staff is if you have to go to a meeting somewhere, try to take a different way home than the way you got there. And it does cause you to go and see, different routes and different roads, so you can get a sense of, the relative damage. But myself, like I say, we keep a list. We're open to feedback from certainly the citizens of the county, and then as well as from yourselves, that if you'd like us to take a look at things.
Through the chair. Neil, is there a certain amount that you hold back in reserve for emergencies like storm damage, or do we dip into our general fund reserves for that?
So typically the county road fund is funded out of the gas tax and the Sb1 funds, and it actually in the budget it has a fund balance. And there are some demands on that I'm going to speak about. I will say the fund balance has been around $6 million. So that is like our savings account but we're going to go through some things actually now about our bridge projects, which are, obviously we have a number of bridge projects that we need to replace. And so just to make you aware, I've tried to sort these by district. So in District 1 and in District 5. And so the Larkin Bridge and the Kent Avenue Bridge are both federal aid projects, which means we're receiving federal aid to do them. They've been in process for quite some time, and we hope to go to construction in the next 1 to 3 years. The Sanders Road Bridge, so that's a project that we've moved forward with, had a feasibility study done. Next month we'll be bringing the consultant's design proposal and permitting. It's going to take about 12 to 18 months, hopefully best case, to get the construction documents and the permit, and then we go to construction. We're allocating, so that's $1.6 million for construction. Like I said, we get over $3 million a year in SB1, and in 1 year eventually we'll put $1.6 million towards that. And I have tried to adjust these numbers for current costs plus inflation for this year's road plan to give you some perspective. Then down in District 5, number of bridges, once again, that we're working on. The Nicholas and the Tisdale have been in process. They're almost done with design and permitting. The Housley Road Bridge probably still has about 2 years to go. And you can see it has become an extremely expensive project, upwards of $16 million. It is eligible for federal aid. And hopefully it will benefit from the infrastructure bill, which is a 5-year, essentially they're looking to allocate money to states and local jurisdictions. But still, for Housley, the county will have to pay $1.9 million in county share. To make you aware that the Fortner Road Bridge was done as a project where we received credit through Caltrans just under $800,000 towards that $1.9 million. So the county is, and it's a special little program that jurisdictions started to take advantage of. We were one of the early adopters of it, and just as a way to try to diversify our funding. You can see and then we have the Mark Hopkins culvert in District 5, which has been, it's a single lane roadway, unfortunately, due to a pipe failure. Once again, that consultant is preparing their design proposal, and we'll bring it before your board for consideration. And then that would move forward, and it could be able to be constructed a little bit quicker just because of the proposed solution. And then we have two other federal aid eligible projects, essentially on our bridges that are over 20 feet long. Caltrans inspects them every 2 years and gives it a score. If it gets a score below 50, it becomes eligible for federal replacement funds. It's a competitive process, and so there are these other two bridges, Sanders and New Westro, that are eligible. We haven't applied yet because we have a number of bridges to kind of clear out, but to make you aware of, that's what's our bridge program.
Through the chair? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh, just quick, I like the list because I like these bridges that are being replaced. But quick question about the Sanders Bridge. So if the federal funding doesn't come through, it will still happen because the engineering is being done, and we'll replace it with the Sb1 funds?
Yeah. So for the Sanders Road Bridge, the current one that's just west of Larkin, we're replacing that just with state and county dollars, and that is fast tracking the project essentially because it doesn't require federal environmental compliance, which...
Through the chair. So a few years ago, I know, Neil, that you had provided a list of bridges, like comprehensive, that needed to be done. And I remember it being 100 more. It was a pretty large list.
212, isn't it?
212 bridges was, can you provide us that list again just so we have it? I mean, it doesn't have to happen today, but... Just...
Yes, so we certainly can. So we have, I believe it's about 106 federal aid eligible bridges. And yes, there are more bridges that have a score less than 50 that we could seek funds for. The challenge is obviously trying to be able to work through the process towards their replacement. And then additionally, your board approved a contract with a consultant that is evaluating all of our bridges and structures that are less than 20 feet long. And those are not eligible for federal aid. And the reason why we're trying to do that, and we actually just had a call with the consultant this week, the reason why we're doing that is that there, unfortunately, will probably be some bridges or structures, they're typically over irrigation culverts or irrigation canals, that will probably need to be replaced, and those will be only eligible for either county or potentially Sb1 funds. So we're trying to get those assessments done while we have Sb1 funds available.
Okay, perfect. Because if you supply that list, I think it'll be top of the mind for us, and we can just keep it where we're out there soliciting funds, whether it's where we're ever at, SACOG or other types of funds that are out there.
Definitely.
All right, thank you.
Happy to do that. So real quickly, I thought I would run through our capital improvement program list for the road fund. So just, and wanted to identify some things at the very top. So previously I've come before your board and talked about the need to relocate the county's road crew from Samuel Drive in Yuba City adjacent to the airport out to Sutter on Acacia Avenue. And so we have an architect did a feasibility study. They are preparing a rough construction estimate, and we've had some conversations with them. So we're looking to allocate money. This would be road fund money. It can't be Sb1 funds, to essentially begin building a structure, designing and then building a structure, a building, metal building for parking equipment, office, restrooms, and staff break rooms out on Acacia.
Mr. Neal, Hayes, what about the property at the end of Pass Road? What's the chances of putting that piece up for sale? I mean, you know, we could work on the zoning on that portion over there, and you know, it's right there next around those homes right there. And I don't know, possibly send it off to auction to help pay for this on Acacia Avenue. I think Acacia Avenue is the best place to put something, especially with high water and so forth. And we already own the ground.
So yes, within our department, we have talked about that very option and just trying to find the right time. We still have, I'll say, some equipment and things there, but we're looking to kind of demo from that site once and for all. Other things that we include in out years is potentially money allocated to the rehabbing of the Trowbridge yard and expanding that. So that is being done, that potentially as the Sutter Point development comes online, and there may, you know, become more requirements for maintenance and calls for service down in that area. Other items that we show are replacement of the various vehicles. So you can see that this year we still have to bring before your board the approval to buy one more super dump truck, and as well as a truck for our sign crew and tree trimming operations. And then we have a couple of dump trucks we need to replace. And then as well, we for next year we'd be looking to replace 2 tractors that we utilize during our grading and shouldering operations, and then tractors and a plotter. Then additionally, I tried to list out the planning of the various bridge projects and how those funds would be allocated over a number of years, essentially from next fiscal year through 26-27. And you can see on the far right the funding source, whether we're relying upon the county's road funds. The HBP is the federal aid, that's the Highway Bridge Program. And then down at the very bottom, I show what we might be allocating for future maintenance projects. So for 22-23, we show the numbers in contract-wise that we showed earlier, but then in out years, we show the money that we would be spending for further seals. I do have a placeholder in there, one for next year for the Pass Road repairs, and then as well for 23-24 for the permanent repairs. So I'm sure there's questions about the status of Pass Road. So we bid out the project. We had, and we have the contractor online. There's actually staff is going to be having a pre-construction meeting this week. Expect work to happen next week. We had a call through our consultant with the state, the Central Valley Flood Protection Board, and they explained that it's going to take essentially 30 months just to get the design approved and permitted through the state and federal agencies. So the repairs that we're making will be that way for at least, we'll just say at least 30 months, probably 36 months, and then we would be coming back to budget funds and seek to potentially make the permanent repairs. So,
when will we know if the state's going to come through in paying for this with the state of emergency?
So we've had conversations with Cal OES, and we've made the submittals, and I believe we're waiting to hear. I can touch base with Zach and subsequently maybe respond back through the CAO's office, but as of yet, we're still waiting to hear.
Neil, what's the ETA on Pass Road Bridge or levee? Do you think that that'll be done like we anticipated by the end of this month?
Yes. So yeah, the state, I'll say, has limited the extent of the repairs that we can make until they actually issue a permit in about 3 months. So we're able to actually fix the immediate repairs of the crack. We'll open it up to traffic, rough road signs, cautionary advisory signs for slow, and to allow agricultural traffic to use the roadway. And then once we receive the state's a permit for, we'll just say, the more intensive interim repairs, we'll do that at some point this summer. And then it'll sit approximately for about 3 years until we get the final approval permitting-wise.
Okay.
So I left a little bit of time to talk about a few other items that sometimes come up with my department regarding the county's road and drainage infrastructure. And one would be that I've tried to share with you the strategy that we have for pavement maintenance and kind of the way that we prioritize the work. I'm myself and my department are open to comments and feedback if you feel that we need to look at modifying our priorities or reconsidering some of their aspects, certainly trying to gather public input about road segments that may be of concern. We can do that, but if there's any other priorities that you want us to take a look at, I'm happy to note those. Something else that I can bring up is that so the county has a challenge with our road system that there are a lot of roadside ditches that are utilized to drain irrigation water from agricultural fields. But while there may be specific reclamation districts that are typically along the levees, there's no drainage district within the county that would collect a fee for those services. And as I've tried to explain, there are definitely limitations, funding limitations and staffing limitations on my department and the services that we can provide to the road network. So one of the items that the Streets and Highways Code provides for is for a county to establish road maintenance districts. And essentially it is similar to any other kind of district that the county has, whether it's for the Gilsizer Drainage District or Live Oak Canal Zones of Benefit, is that you develop a district with some geographical boundaries, you identify the improvements that need to be made, and then you would go before the property owners within that district to determine if they would like to be part of the district and subject to an assessment. And I can provide more information through the CAO's office to all of you, but it would become an opportunity. Yes, it's an assessment on property owners, but it would be a way to probably elevate the status of the county's infrastructure, both roads and drainage-wise. There are other jurisdictions that do have them, and so it's just something I wanted to bring to your attention. Finally, the other item is that the county, through provides encroachment permits to reclamation districts and water companies for pipe replacements that go underneath county roadways. And there has been kind of an ongoing debate that if there is a pipe that's underneath a county roadway, it's the county's responsibility to fix. And the Streets and Highways Code essentially has language that for drainage, that's an eligible use of road funds. And so in the past, the department has made those agreements and arrangements. But there are pipes that are irrigation pipes, and the Streets and Highways Code, essentially, from my reading, requires your Board of Supervisors to approve the allocation of the road fund to do that. You could allocate general fund, or if there was district fees that were collected. And so we're getting to a situation where there are a few irrigation pipes that are failing underneath county roadways, and I'm probably going to be meeting with those water companies. And sometimes it's an irrigation pipe that's also used for drainage, and so it creates a little bit of a little confusion. But I just want to make you aware that if there's matters where the pipe is used for irrigation purposes, it's my understanding, and I'll consult with County Counsel's office, that those matters need to come before your board in order to approve the allocation of road fund to those dollars. And what I would tell you obviously is that there are a lot of pipes in this county. There's a lot of agricultural land. There's a lot of irrigation canals, and it can be expensive to replace those pipes, both if it was just the county by ourselves or certainly for the water companies. And so there may be an opportunity to partner on the process or come out with some type of equitable distribution. But I wanted to make you aware of it, that in the future that's something that I see coming before your board.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll definitely talk about that. All right, is there any other questions from the board? All right.
To the chair.
Yes.
Just one quick comment. On the Public Works page on the county website, there is an online road service request link, so the citizens can go on if they have particular concerns. And
yeah, but I like my idea better of let's shorten it up and cliff note it. Let's put it something that we could put on our Facebook page, as the county's Facebook page, make it easier, because it's a pain in the rear to get anywhere on the county's site. Spent 2 hours a day just figuring out my stuff. So we'll keep it simple.
I always like your ideas better.
Right. That's a good man. All right. All right. So, all right, let's take a quick break and we'll.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at PlumasLakeSelfStorage.com.